Recording is on.
Welcome to DXdao governance discussion for Wednesday, November 9th at, I believe we're now at 1600 UTC. I will share the agenda first. It's in the chat for those of you on the call. Today for proposal roundup, you can see on Mainnet we have a couple of proposals, and then on Gnosis Chain we have a good chunk of proposals, which is kind of par for the course here. And then discussion items, we have the Infinite Hackathon and DXdao retreat report from Lateral that will go over a couple comments on DXD Buyback trade volume and some ideas on Mainnet dollar buys. I just wanted to briefly chat about the prod strategy call, and actually another one that I didn't put on here, but that I should, is maybe a brief discussion about, I think, the first DAO vote we can get to for discussion items there. And then, yeah, so we'll start with the proposal roundup. We have just two proposals that are boosted or pending boosting right now. We have the contribution reward scheme. We have, of course, the D-Labs contributor bonus. So this was talked about last week as well. This proposal specifically was actually already submitted and talked about during this call last week. I think it was still boosting during that. And then we talked about the period before. And then this is, slated to pass in the next 5.5 hours there. And then we have the Register New Contribution Reward Scheme, which still actually doesn't have any votes, but it's going to be in the queue for another 9 days, because this is a really important change to the to DXdao governance. And so it's important to kind of take the time. So that's how the governance system is built for that. This is in response to the previous disclosure in terms of the vulnerability for the ability to redeem a proposal for multiple times. Check, that's a complicated thing. There's lots of things on the forum about that. And then we can also check last week's governance call for a way to go through and verify this proposal and is doing what it's saying it's doing. So this one is basically just, it's not changing any of the parameters of the it's redeploying a new contribution reward scheme that isn't changing any of the parameters, but is only changing the ability to redeem multiple proposals. And so, this will need some votes to be able to implement. And then that was it for Mainnet. So we'll switch over to DXdao here. On DXdao, we have, I think, 3 different cow swap orders that are going through there. One's still needing some votes. And then we have the Violet contributor proposal. Violet, of course, 2.5 years, over 2 years, DXdao has been doing things on both Swapper and Nimi. This is the second half of that proposal. And then also a retroactive contributor reward proposal. So this is as part of the DX referral reward program for basically bringing in new contributors to DXdao and rewarding those. So this is actually a lot of work that Milan did in terms of bringing in another Milan, Diego and Leonardo too. So that's a cool initiative. And this is just boosted earlier today. And then there are a couple pending boosts. I should have kind of done that here. We'll get to this proposal in a second. But there's a couple that are still pending boosts. Diego contributor proposal, and then Keenan is for the first half and the second half here of his proposals there that are now able to be voted on once they get boosted there. And then there is, maybe another proposal to highlight. We have 2 different proposals from Nylon or Metronome here. So this is a retroactive contributor proposal. So Nylon has been really involved in DXdao for a long time as a community member, and has been leading a lot of the biz dev calls and action there, and obviously participating on a bunch of other calls and perspective here. And this was in the forum, I think it was like 2 months ago, before Columbia there. And so these are the 2 different proposals. There would be a little bit of rep minted, and then one is, I believe, for 26,000, which covers all of 2020 2021. Maybe it's the first month in January too. So that's a whole year there, as well as the second one is for 2022. And then for that one, I guess it's only like 8 or 9 months here. So yes, 20,160 DXdao. And then there is another one on the quiet ending period I noticed down here. Guerra P contributor proposal. This is for doing a lot of great work on DXstats and is actually going to start helping on the Carrot front end. But yeah, DXstats has really been really cool and nice, and I've actually been playing around with the new version of it that is very nice. And so I look forward to that being submitted through a new ENS update to update that there. And yeah, so I think that was most of the big, all of the ones we mentioned here. And then, yeah, there's a big, Augusto, do you have?
Yeah, I just want to say that the proposal registering the contribution reward, fixing the vulnerability, submitted by Dave, was executed today. And we are going to submit a proposal to test that it works correctly today. So it is already there. We have a pull request in development, and yeah, we are going to be testing that. But everything worked so far.
And that's the same one that is still up for a vote on Mainnet. And so this is a much quicker time on Gnosis Chain. We'll have it. So yeah, it'd be good to be able to get those tests completed even before that Mainnet proposal passes there. So yeah, good stuff there. Awesome. And then, yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about the restructuring and refocus proposal. I guess I'm going to read it correctly. Restructuring and refocus phase 2, accountability, access, anatomy, parentheses, structure, not comma, structure here. So this is, yeah, once again, 0x Clom here. So doing a lot of great work on this. And so, yeah, Keenan, I don't know if you want to set the table here. I also just made a quick comment in the forum on there, so I can kind of comment on briefly, but maybe, yeah, if you want to kick it off here.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, Chris. And I always love the difference between 0 and O between cultures when they read my name. Yeah, so the signal proposal for phase 2 is out now. There's been a lot of discussion period, a lot of time spent, of course, in person as well, which is a very unique aspect of this phase in my eyes. So let me quickly go over the kind of finalized conditions here, which I think Chris has on screen as well. The first one, this is of course all based on the off-chain consensus, including calls, forum, discussions, etc. DXdao will implement a 6-month squad-based budgetary cycle and shift contributor proposals to their respective squads. And then kind of footnote an exact solution and specifications will be explored in phase 3. This action ascertains DXdao shift to a squad-based budgetary cycle. So basically saying that we want to move in this direction, not what the exact specific implementation and solution of it is, but the important thing is that we will move towards this system. I think this is probably the largest structural change DXdao has maybe ever seen in my eyes. And I think it's an incredibly important one. It's going to really dictate the way that we operate and kind of what we focus on over the next little while. Next up, DXdao commit to the exploration of accountability councils within phase 3, ultimately aiming to implement an intermediary step between execution and governance if feasible. And then footnote, DXdao recognizes that a step between execution and governance would integrate a significant degree of accountability. This action ensures that DXdao will commit to further exploration of the accountability councils or other initiatives that could effectively fall within this step during the 3rd phase of its restructuring. So accounting for the basis of the kind of step between execution and governance. There's been a lot of discussion on that topic, some kind of for, some kind of against, and I think it's definitely worth digging a lot deeper into and finding some solution for that accountability. Next up, DXdao will implement a priorities board and democratic process of determining said priorities. Similarly to the above, this is one with kind of broad support, and the implementation doesn't necessarily matter from the proposal aspect. The idea is to kind of point in that direction. So If this were to pass, then there's an on-chain signal that DXdao will implement a priorities board, which is the most important part. Number 4, DXdao will formally establish its overarching vision as enable community freedom. And kind of footnote here as well. This operates as a vision statement. The specifics of the mission statement and further actions will be determined within phase 3. If these statements change dramatically during exploration, they'll be reflected in the final signal proposal. This action ascertains a direction. I guess the language is very similar from most of these points, that it's not saying the exact specifications that it is the answer, but it's taking nothing, moving to something. And if throughout the exploration of the next 2 months into the end of the year, we kind of determine that there is something better, then we can move to that. If not, then we have a direction that at this stage, I think a majority are super happy with on both the product side, the vision side, and the structure side. And then the last point, DXdao will formally establish its direction as a decentralized pipeline for communities and look to prioritize a flagship product that interconnects current and future product initiatives. And just a footnote, excuse me, if during exploration an alternative emerges, it will be reflected in the final signal proposal, just ascertaining the direction for DXdao to take its product focus when taking into phase 3. Similar to the kind of squad budget aspect, this is the other largest shift in kind of dynamic and focus for the DAO in my eyes. What the specifics mean, like I mentioned, it doesn't necessarily matter. The point is that it sets the direction and the stage for phase 3, where we can dig into what we're going to do and how we're going to execute upon it. One thing I did mention here is DX Voice. So this is quite a long discussion at the retreat. But DX Voice, in collaboration with DXgov, will look to create an operable wireframe throughout phase 3, provided the proposal passes. I think, Chris, this was your idea initially, if I remember correctly. But the idea is just to kind of mock out what this would look like and make sure it makes sense to do and would be used before the DAO commits to the actual product direction. So how can we kind of support that throughout the discovery process is just a little footnote that I thought was good. Yeah, Dirk will be the king of the wireframe. Yeah, so that's the his idea. I think I'm stealing his thunder here. Yeah, that's the meat of the phase 2. Super important proposal in my eyes and interpretation of the discussion so far. And I will once again reiterate that I'm super happy with how we have got here. The discussions have been, much more friendly, less toxicity surrounding these discussions specifically. And I think that generally we've been moving steadfast into a direction that makes a lot of sense, a place that we haven't really been before. So super happy with where we are. Thank you.
Awesome. Just doing a little, there will be a lot of ascertaining for DXdao here. That's one of this action ascertains. So I like that word a lot. It's fun to say too. Yeah, just in terms of, I wanted to maybe talk briefly about, I made a post on this this morning right before this call. Yeah, so as you can see on the DX vote here, there has been a lot of support. And yeah, one of them was Candy Fork, which I voted this morning for this proposal, and just really want to kind of explain a little bit why I said, I think this proposal would put DXdao on a path to a more robust, accountable, and decentralized governance culture, while also aligning the community and contributors around a core vision. And I guess like the key point here is this will require more work and coordination, but it's really hard to start that work and coordination when you don't have an idea of really where you're going. And I think that applies to like the structure and processes just as much as it applies to the vision and like aligning on that idea. You need to have like some idea of where you're going and then agree to that and then start to work for it. So that's really what I see in this proposal. And then, I think in terms of one of the things I think Keenan has done a very good job in this proposal, I think, of trying to do that, where you're aligning us on like, okay, what's the general direction we're going? And then, like, as I said here, and I like to say is, cross the river by feeling the stones, or, mo zhe shi tou guo he is how you say it in Chinese. It's a famous saying that Deng Xiaoping used to say a lot. And I think that's an approach that we can kind of take here a lot. But it really is important to set out a general direction that we're all agreed upon, and then, take the time to figure out how we get there. And so, if this passes and we go through with that, I think there will be a lot more in terms of discussion and like, well, how do we implement this, and how do we kind of go through and iron out a lot of the fine details there. But that's why Kenny Fork voted for it. I don't know if there are anyone else that wants to say anything or comment on this proposal. A bad person.
The proposal would get an interesting first vote. It's potentially worth chatting about.
That's good. Let's do it now. Actually, that's fun because I didn't get that. Actually. Yeah. So this is 0%.
This is it's 0%. It's actually like 0.005%, I think. But this was as far as I know, I don't know a good way of working it out. Potentially the first inter-DAO vote. It'd be interesting to work out if there was another one. But this was technically a vote from DXD Guild, although it only really had the authority of me, since I had over 50% locked in there, since we're just testing it. But it was pretty cool to see a vote actually going through. So this was a proposal made on the DXD Guild to vote in this proposal. DXD will. I think I locked 0.01 or 0.01 DXD. And right now it's just me, Sky, and Wayne in there. This is pretty cool as a proof of concept. It's nice to see it all working well. If you look in the logs, I think you can see a vote on proposal. Which is awesome with 100 reputation, voting yes. We have some next steps. Now there's some work still in a PR that's due to go out the next release of Davi, which better supports this. It was done in a fairly hacky way just to test that it can actually work. And then beyond that, we'll be advertising it to DXD holders to get them into the guilds if they're interested in voting. And then after that, all that's left is minting the initial 4%, which we'll try to do as soon as possible. It's only really reliant upon having some holders in the guild, some members in the guild, and having the Davi release out, which should be in roughly 2 weeks' time.
Cool. Exciting. Augusto?
Just want to say why I voted in favor of this proposal. I am not entirely and completely sold on some stuff regarding even more about the accountability councils, but I just want to reflect on what happened on these past months since July on DXdao, and this looks like way different to the state where we were 4 months ago, and where things were, for me at least, personally on the contributor level, were quite frustrating, and we lack. It was clear for me that we lack a direction, a purpose, a vision. Other leads start working on that. So I voted on favor on this because I agree with most of the stuff. I would encourage everyone here, even if you not agreeing entirely with this, you can still go and vote, maybe with half of your rep, or just with the part of your rep, just to signal an approval, or just to signal some approval on this, right? And just as we are changing how we work right now, again, it might not be perfect, it won't be perfect, mistakes will be made. we still need to make some steps, right? Like go forward toward one direction, and this is what I like about this. I hope that next year, when we recap about everything, we will be able to recognize if mistakes were done and fix them, So yeah, I don't see it as a final that we are going to be, again, like, for example, enabling community freedom forever, maybe. I hope we do, but yeah, let's see how it goes next year. Let's meet next year on the next retreat and figure out how things went. I think it will be way better than that it was this past year, and it's a work in progress. But these are, again, I encourage everyone, if you are at least agreeing on some parts of the signal proposal, go and vote.
Wayne, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo actually what Gusto said, and just say that, yeah, I'm not 100% certain that I also agree with everything, because I'm not sure how everything will work, specifically as well, like he said about the councils. But, I also agree that we have to start somewhere and that it's a work in progress. So I'm just going to say that. And I think that a big thing that we still need to work on is the way that we communicate, the way that we talk with each other. We somehow need to work more on finding a place where we can speak more freely and more openly and more honestly on these calls, because I still find that the discussions can be still very much one-sided. But again, I think we all recognized that while we were in Bogota, and I also recognize that that's an ongoing process. So I'm just chiming in to start changing that process. That's it, sorry.
Yeah, that's good. And I also think, as I said before, like, I think the way it's not just what's in the signal proposal, but it's this discussion and the context here that is ultimately like what informs how we move forward. So I think it is important, even just on having that thread to voice things, and people kind of saying some of their concerns now are actually helpful in how we end up implementing these things. And so it's just as much about the discussion along the way as it is like the end text.
I think sometimes people are afraid to say what they're concerned about, right? Because they are uncertain if there will be repercussions to what they say, how negative it will be, especially because things can kind of be quite negative at the moment. If somebody doesn't like what you have to say, or somebody doesn't like what you're doing, there can be quite a strong attack on you, especially in the forums and stuff like that. I'm not necessarily saying it was from people here, but I think that is a valid concern that we should definitely take into consideration. And silence doesn't necessarily mean, agreement.
Yeah, I want to maybe add that, this is a culture thing, and I think as a part of this refocus and restructuring, like, we're gonna have to rebuild our culture. We have, I think, a vision or a direction of a vision, and the culture that we need to build. And I think we discussed about this before in some of the calls. If anyone has seen the Ray Dalio TED talk about like radical transparency, he calls it. So I suggest, like, going through and seeing that. Then I think one of the best things that we can do is figure out how do we give feedback to each other, how do we improve by that, and how do we not get offended. If someone tells you that you've done something wrong or you didn't do something well, you don't need to get offended. You need to find a way, to improve yourself in that regard. And this is also how to give feedback, and this is also how to receive feedback. I highly suggest to see the TED Talk by Ray Dalio. It was my inspiration originally to like why DAOs are going to take over everything, and then reality happened and it doesn't really work this way. But yeah, definitely something to look up to. And what in that TED talk, it's pretty extreme the way they work. We don't need to go that way, but I think I hope that a part of this restructuring refocus will be that, figuring out the culture in DXdao, even though we're all remote and in the metaverse. How do we build together?
Melanie Bridgewater is very extreme.
Yeah, maybe a small anecdote. I have friends who work there, and they said like 30% of your time is dedicated to feedback. Every single thing is recorded, and there's a team who analyzes things, and they will come up to you after a meeting and be like, at that meeting you were personal, and they will give you feedback on this. So it's a bit like a cult. That's what she said. So
yeah, the cult of Ray. Any other parting thoughts on this proposal? Any of the other live proposals on Gnosis Chain? So I'm not sure if the cache is up in Arbiter 1, but we always try to check to see if there's anything else there, but we don't have any active proposals on Arbiter 1. Has not been as busy lately. And then, so we'll move on to discussion items. Maybe just switch these because I think this might take a little bit. This one will take a little bit more time. Starting with the DXD buyback and trade volume and mainnet dollar buys. So one on kind of the DXD buyback, there was some additional kind of work done in terms of coalescing some of the current state of where things are at with the buyback. And I think the key thing there is we actually just passed 2 or 3 days ago, we just passed where we finally depleted the buyback reserve, meaning there was 2,499 ETH right here that was spent on buybacks. You'll recall that the first 481 ETH used to buy for the buyback was actually to the general treasury. And then after that, it switched to the buyback reserve. So anyway, so we've concluded that portion of it. So that means we have 11,536 DXD to be burned as part of that, because as part of the agreement, all of the DXD acquired through the buyback reserve is to be burned, whereas the DXD that's acquired from the general treasury, DXD that's acquired with ETH from the general treasury just goes back to the general treasury there. So that just concluded. And then what we just started is the first purchases under the new authorization, the 500K authorization that passed at the end of August. Now, this one was different because it had a little different stipulations in terms because it was not using it from the buyback reserve. So that's where we are there. And then the other kind of change that you've noticed, of course, is that we've now switched over completely to using cow swap for buyback order executions there. But yeah, maybe just wanted to this one because I thought it was kind of interesting that I presented on the DXD token working group last week, some of the numbers you have, right? So in the beginning, there was 48,976 DXD that was minted from the bonding curve. There was 100,000 DXD that was minted to vest to DXdao over 3 years. And so that was the whole supply to start with. And so where things are right now, there's 80,725 DXD in the DXdao treasury. There's still 19,600 of this 100,000 that is vesting still to vest to DXdao. There's 16.99 DXD in the bonding curve because a poor soul sent that there. He was later refunded. There's also like 130,000 USDC in the bonding curve that was refunded there, but there's a little bit of DXD there. And then you look, DXdao on Gnosis Chain has 12,935 DXD, and that is all from these purchases that have happened on Gnosis Chain. Of course, they've gone back to the DXdao Gnosis Chain treasury, and yeah, we'll get to a second when we want to talk about what to do with those. And then there's 790 DXD in the HATS vault right now that is from DXdao, and so that would give a circulating supply of 34,889. So you can see, in terms of what was minted from the curve, you can see that about 31% of DXD minted from the curve has been repurchased there, and the DXD to burn, as you said, would be 11,536, and so that would lead to a projected total supply of 137,440. And then the other commitments that we have been made is there's about 3,700 DXD that's vesting to contributors. So this is everyone that when contributors get paid anywhere from 40 to 60%, 35 to 60% of their salary is actually in DXD that's vested over 3 years. So we're accounting for that here, but that's not on the market yet, so it doesn't contribute to circulating supply. And then as part of the governance 2.0 agreement, there was a good chunk of DXD that was going to be vested to individual rep holders after 3 years once governance 2.0 launches. And then, in terms of the bonding curve itself, I like to say inhaled ETH. It took in about 25,000 ETH, and it minted with that 48,976 DXD. Remember, it was a linear increasing price, so it starts at like 0.01 ETH, and then I think it got all the way up to like 1.02 ETH. But the average price that was minted from that was 0.51 DXD per ETH, and then the average price that DXdao has acquired up here is 0.19626, so just under that. And then so far there has been 1,100 DXD issued by DXdao. Some of that is for contributors that have already earned vested DXD. Other of that was for some swapper farming, and then a couple random like smaller marketing things that we've used DXD for that. So anyway, that's the kind of lay of the land in terms of where we are on this. And then I guess like the next thing, actually not as much on here, but Dave, we have all this DXD in Gnosis Chain DXdao. And so right now we have 80,000 DXD in Mainnet DXdao and like almost 13,000 DXD in Gnosis Chain DXdao. So I guess like the question is, and then we want to burn 11,536, and the only way you can truly burn it is on chain, actually through the original token contract there. So we're kind of talking about how to maybe rearrange some of this or do some transfers here. And so Dave, we're working on a proposal to maybe do a DXD transfer.
Yeah, I mean, couple of reasons for that. I guess like DXD currently makes up a large percentage part of the Gnosis Chain treasury, but most importantly, if we do plan to burn this DXD, we could of course do that on Gnosis Chain, but then the corresponding DXD on Mainnet would most likely still exist in the actual bridge. So kind of like bridging that back to Mainnet if we want to eventually burn it logically makes more sense, and it's also just easier to be tracked from like CoinGecko and all these sites which like simply query like the DXD balance on Mainnet. And so we'll have a forum post about that up soon, and to kind of also decide how much DXD we want to leave in Gnosis Chain. I think it definitely makes sense to leave some there, especially with people claiming their vested DXD through worker proposals. In Gnosis Chain, you can actually do that through just one proposal because XDAI is a native token, and you can send DXD as an ERC20. While on Mainnet, you actually have to do two, because if you're requesting stables, that's 2 ERC20s, of course. We'll follow up on the forum with this, and then hopefully do a proposal end of this week or early next, and bridge over a majority of the DXD. Yeah.
Adam's saying there's a way to like basically burn on Gnosis Chain that automatically burns on Mainnet, but I think we should burn through the curve. That's what's cool. Any thoughts on that? I guess the other maybe just two things to highlight are, one, the DXD trade volume. I did a post 2 days ago on this. Is actually trade volume has actually gone up the last month or so, and even like the last couple of days, there's actually been a lot of volume here and activity. I think some of that is general market volatility related, but I think it's also just maybe a little bit more uptick in interest and volume there. And then the last thing is working on a proposal to, for all of these buybacks that we've been talking about here, all of these were purchased with ETH, right? So we were using ETH from the treasury to buy DXD. And I think when we look at, I don't know if you want to see the price of ETH or the general makeup of the treasury, I think it could make more sense to do some buybacks from using dollar liquidity, so using stablecoins themselves. And I think we could do that on Mainnet, where there is a little bit more like liquid market for DXD. And so that would be a little bit more tricky, because if you're doing things in dollar buys, then the price of ETH could change, which then could affect like the price of DXD. Whereas like typically the ETH DXD price is stable, even if the dollar price of DXD is a little trickier. So that's a little trickier. And then of course with cow swap on Mainnet, we had to have 15 days to pass proposals. So in terms of like, how do you set slippage, or do you just trust that the order will be executed there? But anyway, just wanted to give like a little brief update on that here, and I'll working on a post to get that up hopefully today on how that will work, and maybe how we affect the accounting of that, because that accounting would come from the 500K that's already authorized actually in dollars there. So anyway, we'll have a post on that for more information, and then we can start submitting that proposal, because of course it will take like 15 days to actually pass. So getting that, we'll have a lot of time to discuss it. Okay, thanks for everyone for getting to that. We had a couple different things to get through, and then I think we can kind of maybe devote rest of the time, a good chunk here, in terms of the DXdao Hackathon and Retreat report by Lateral. So I don't know if Tommy, Mika, and Gaspar want to start things off, Augusto want to start things off, or we just hit the ground running.
Unless Augusto wants to start, I can start.
Go for it.
Okay. Can I share?
I have to stop sharing. There we go.
Okay.
We see your
screen. So we have this document Chris was showing. It's quite long, and it explains a lot of things. It has like 15 pages, but any of you can find it on the proposal on the forum. So I won't be reading this. We will be shortly talking about. These were the dates where they occurred. The hackathon was organized by us, but co-organized. We were actually like support there, but the main organizers were DXdao, Hopper, Brink, Kleros, and Swarn, having a DXdao as lead organizer. And this was done in Bogota at the Hilton DoubleTree Satin. There's a big venue, and it was there 3 days long. This is what happened mainly. As I said, on the document here, you can find the complete schedule, but roughly this is it. I think it was nice. It happened quite smoothly. There were some issues on the way, but we mostly solved them all. And one thing we noticed at the end, we have it on the report also, is that hackers were like really happy with how this turned out. These are the numbers. Like some are just like for fun, how many beers and Red Bulls were consumed, but this is the important part, no? Like 5 co-organizers, 131 registered hackers. Not all of them went to the hackathon, but one important thing to say about this is that there were other hackathons occurring at the same time. So I think it was actually a good number, because One of the hackathons was done by ETH.org, and it was a big one. So having 51 hackers is actually a success for me. And well, 16 projects, which is also a very interesting number. Some of them, well, they were all really interesting, but there were a few which were, in my opinion, like really interesting, really good. And well, 60 hours hacking. So the thing there is that the venue was open all the time, continuously, like 24 hours. So and there was a continuous supply of food, drinks, and everything. So those who wanted to stay there and sleep there, actually with the big beanbags, they could stay there, and there were beanbags for all. If all of them would like to stay, they could have stayed there. So that was nice. That was prepared. And these are some things we saw. Some of them I already said, and I don't want to take much time in this, but it's also explained in the report longer. Of course, there are some opportunities to improve how the hackathon turned out, but in general, we think it was a good hackathon with a nice outcome, and well, we will probably need to see how things evolve with the economy and so, but this is probably a nice thing to keep doing over the years. Well, going to the DXdao retreat, also organized by us, but in this case only for DXdao, and in Tierra Bomba in Cartagena, at a venue called Namaste.
I guess, Augusto, do you want to talk about the hackathon and then talk about the retreat, or he raised his hand?
Yeah. I just wanted to add on the conclusion, my personal conclusion on the hackathon. I agree with everything that Tommy just said, that the hackathon, I think it went very good. And I was actually surprised, because I knew it was going to be tough to make a good hackathon, a good quality hackathon, even more with ETH Global running next to us. We have hundreds of hackers, way more money on prices. I mean, it was everything bigger, So I think what we end up doing was very good. Yeah, it was not very. It was not maybe not so well organized. Actually, it was not good organized before that. I had to do a lot of stuff. I think a lot of DXdao people had to do a lot of stuff, and we saw very few engagement from co-organizers. That is my conclusion, that co-organizers were not actually co-organizing. It was mostly DXdao, something to change for the future, because it took a lot of energy to DXdao. Luckily, it was good, but yeah, it took lot of more energy and resources that we planned. But maybe that's why it went so good. Maybe if we were co-organizing it with other people, or it was like in a more collaborative process, maybe it wouldn't turn up so good. I think that we put a lot of motivation and passion on the organization, and you can see it reflected on the event. But on the future, I personally, I won't like to go through that again, because again it took a lot of energy. So yeah, I won't organize a hackathon again. I would like to help, but for me personally, I think for other people in DXdao, it took way more energy than we were expecting. It ended up being a good event, a very good event. But for the future, if we do it again, we should be, we should think about how much we are going to be engaged on this, and estimate how much energy and resources we are going to put put
maybe Augusto, maybe now that we already did this once and we already kind of know what needs to be done, we can distribute tasks better. Maybe if the next time it's co-organized again, we can just from the beginning say, okay, you as co-organizers dedicate and solve these issues, and we will solve those other issues, and things could like get the load of work could get better distributed. I have the same feeling. I have the feeling that co-organizers actually only help with funding, with giving money, not that much organizing. But maybe that's a thing to improve and better communicate next time.
I think this it would be very interesting to have this conversation with the other co-organizers, and I believe we have a retrospective pending, right? So I have high hopes on that meeting.
Yeah. I have read it today. Okay.
Could I add just a couple things?
Yes,
my guess is if you have no lead organizer, then nothing gets done. So if everyone was equal and there was no lead organizer, I think nothing would get done. And then I'm curious what people think about DXdao participating in hackathons in general. So far, we've done this a handful of times virtually. ETH Denver, our own hackathon, getting hackers to hack on DXdao products has continually been tricky. So organizing our own hackathon is like a larger way to scale that. It got us, community and some interested people and some good relationships with the co-organizers and some good discussions and things. But like people didn't really hack on DXdao stuff. We also faced that issue at in-person and virtual ETH Global hackathons as well, and ETH Denver. So I'm wondering what people think about like DXdao participating in anything like a hackathon over, let's say, the next 6 months or a year, and if it's good or bad and what it gets DXdao and the cost reward kind of thing.
Yes, something in relation with that, Sky, is what we wrote on the report, is that maybe the hackathon could be like more targeted to solve specific things, so that using the technology is not only a plus, where that if you do it you get some payment, but a must. You must use that technology to solve something. Any issue that maybe DXdao has and needs to solve, it will be nice to hackers to actually hack and solve things you already have, which would make them use the technology. And it would be also maybe a good place to pick up talents and recruit people if needed. So yes, I agree. There is a little thing to be done there around focusing more on the profitability of the hackathon back to DXdao. Is one of the things I wrote here, and it's a little bit longer written here on the document. You'll see it if you read it there. Where is it? Here, there are much more things here. I don't know if you met something like that, or maybe I understood wrong.
So you're saying you could force people, if they come to a hackathon organized by DXdao, they're forced to hack on things that DXdao is working on. Like the Graph does that, right? The Graph has a hackathon, and you have to come there and work, and you have to hack on Graph stuff. Like it kind of makes sense.
Instead of
we left it very open, but the fact that no one there was interested, they were more interested to hack on Hopper and Brink and Claros over the things that they could hack on related to DXdao. That's an underlying that's a big obstacle, right? Like the fact that no one wanted to hack on governance products at what was what we want it to be, like a DAO focused hackathon, seems a little crazy, right?
Well, maybe that's something to take also as a learning. Maybe the technology and the solutions need to be, I don't know, like better explained or sold so that people know what they can do with them, and they want to do things with them. So yes, if you make a hackathon where they can do whatever they want, it's more open than if you present them with challenges and you say, okay, try to solve this particular thing, which narrows a little bit. And it's also a good way to do a hackathon. I've seen it in other places. It works.
Yes. So I guess my original question was, there's going to cost to organizing, and there's a time and money cost, and there's a cost to joining other people's hackathons like ETH Globals or ETH Denver's. Are people, is the community interested in participating in more hackathons over the next 6 months to 12 months?
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe a conversation that can't be solved right now, and it's good that we have this kind of conversation and reflection from the report here, so that we know how we feel, and then letting it sink in, and then kicking and seeing if there's something to keep doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So moving on, retreat, as I said, in Tierra Bomba in Cartagena. Also, roughly this is what happened. Again, if you go to the full report, you have the complete schedule here, and a little bit more explained each day what we did. But roughly this is what happened. In our opinion, it was like really productive from the maybe more personal and team building aspect. You know, there were like many very interesting talks and valuable outcomes from these talks. And even though we tried to make some of the things happen, like getting to a purpose or writing OKRs or things like that, I think many other things happened and many other talks happened, and they were like really productive, and many things got solved between persons and solved or resolved. Like they got to some point where some decision was made, and that's what we want, to make decisions. So I think developers had also a chance to talk between each other, and to maybe actually many of them met for the first time. I think many of you never had seen their faces. So I think it was like a great opportunity to join, to get together, and to have a great outcome with maybe a technical specific level, but also with a social level, like this team building thing. So these are the outcomes we have. Like the tangibles are a solid purpose, which is the one Augusto said a while ago, and I think it's the one that probably will lead you through a couple of years, hopefully. And then we have these 6 concrete OKRs. If you go to the report, you have this pictures where you can also see the key results. I did not copy all of them here, but they are there. And then you have, well, at least we have the feeling you got these also out, also in this case, non-tangible outcomes, which are related to what I said before, like team building, mutual understanding of each other, and generation of trust by knowing each other at a personal level. I mean, there were some tough conversations, to say it in a kind way, and discussions and things. But once that it's overcome, that it puts you, it takes you to a better place, and it's things that are sometimes difficult to do, but needed if you want to grow as an organization. So this is the purpose. OKRs, as I said. A small summary of an assessment, but there is a much longer one here. So if you're interested, I think you better read this one. This is just if you want to present something. And what is maybe important is next steps. And here I'm glad I heard a while ago, before I started to talk, some of the things you said, and some of them are a little bit in line with what we think. And this is one of them is like strongly work on communication skills. We actually saw that there are some difficulties in getting conversations and receiving what you said a while before, and receiving feedback, in having like difficult talks without getting into a fight. And this is something you can develop. Like these are skills people can develop, and our invitation is to you to work on this. And it requires time and dedication, and probably people that will help you with this. It's not something like that you learn alone. It's like any other thing. You need someone that helps you with this training. But it's an important issue, and it's maybe the most structural thing of an organization is communication. So if communication is not working, probably all the rest won't work. Also, improve in decision making, and this is also done. This has to be done in a very explicit manner. You need to create agreements so that this decision making is context based. So in some context, some decisions are made on a way, and in another context on another way. But this is something you need to build. Improve collaboration between teams and squads. This is actually something that came up on the OKR, so it's very in line. Also, the feedback issue maybe fits into this one. It's all basically the same. Distribute knowledge in a constant, transparent manner. Also, this goes with the collaboration between teams. We had the feeling during the retreat that even though information is somehow always available, it's not always known by everyone. And something that surprised us a little bit is to see many faces that were like surprised to hear things that the ones that were saying it were like pretty sure that everybody knew about that, and that it was not the case. So somehow you need to improve in how the knowledge is distributed and how the information gets to everyone, because that helps to make better decisions also. And then there's other two things which are more a suggestion, like regularly meet in person as much as possible. Many of the things that happened during the retreat in 3 or 4 days would probably take many months if you do it online. Always meeting in person is much better. It's also more expensive in this case, but well, you are an online organization, so maybe this is an expense you can afford. I don't know. That's something you need to decide. And now that you have OKRs, it's something that must be dynamic and must work and be like reviewed constantly. Okay, so KRs should be reviewed every 3 months, and the OKRs should be written again every 6 months because they need to be reevaluated and rewritten. And that's it with the short version. But you have all the information much longer at the report, the written report, which I think I can. Oh no, it's on the proposal on the forum. You can find the link to the report. So that's it. Open to questions or comments from all of you.
Yes, gracias. I think it went great, the retreat and everything. So yeah, definitely a learning experience. We learned quite a few things on the retreat to organize it for the next one. I think the next one will likely be around DevCon again. So yeah, well, personally, I had a lot of fun, and I think was very important. Also in the right moment for DXdao. We were going through a restructure process, so the retreat was very helpful.
Okay.
Awesome. Other thoughts or comments? I think that one of the things that's really great is actually seeing for both of them, like this is what we can kind of see as we say it was an experiment or said it was something that we did, but now we have like a sample size to be able to evaluate like the effectiveness of it, what we can improve on. And I think especially when you look at kind of like the budget for these things and like how much these things cost, we can kind of be able to tackle that going forward. And I think having these types of things, there is some general like learning experience that we all do get from that. And then we all then have like information to be able to act on that in the future, even if it is like going in a different direction. It's like we now actually have that information. I think there were a couple questions on the like budget counting stuff, but I think that those were like mostly answered, but that was maybe the only other thing I thought to like tie up just so we have like a clear idea on what those are. And I haven't looked all the way through this, but I think if this is just Dave and Chris, I think is like the other thing. And I don't remember what the conversion rate is.
I think it's there. The conversion rate
Oh, there it
mostly it was on all the document that Tommy shared. It's the rate that we applied on the conversion. It was an estimation for the date that we made each of the payments.
Cool. Separately but relatedly, I'm working on another expenses update for the last 2 months here on DXdao broadly. So this will be very helpful for the context on that. And then I also can kind of use that maybe if there's anything different from the outbound transfers from DXdao and those proposals, like that's kind of where we pull the data from there. And so that maybe will help reconcile that. So yeah, hopefully have that up middle of next week.
On the long report, the written one, we wrote all the expenses we could track.
Yeah.
So most of them are there.
If there's any extra that you put on your accounts, also you can share and we can add it. There's no problem. But let us know.
Yeah. Once we kind of like do all of the DXdao expenses, because there's, that will include the proposals to send different amounts. We can double check that to make sure we've covered everything. But
yeah, that's great.
Awesome. I know we're a little over time, so yeah, if there's anything else that anyone wants to say now, or maybe something coming into the forum, that will be up there, forever, and we can comment on that going forward. So, any last parting thoughts, and we can call it a day. Awesome. Thanks everyone. Thanks Lateral for joining in the retreat and hackathon, and we'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Okay, guys. Thank you to listen. Bye-bye.
Yeah, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.